In the final years of the Second World War, the skies over Europe were a canvas of darkness and tension. Young aviators, flying long-range missions, navigated through endless nights, their senses heightened by the immense pressure of their duties. Their world was one of instruments, engine hum, and the vast, unforgiving emptiness that surrounded their metallic shells. Every shadow in the clouds and every flicker of light on the horizon could mean something significant for their journey. But soon, these seasoned airmen would begin to see something that defied all their training and experience. Something that wasn't on any recognition chart and didn't behave like any known aircraft of the time. These sightings would become one of the most enduring and strangest mysteries of the entire historical period. A phenomenon reported by Allied and Axis pilots alike, an enigma that united them in their confusion. This is the story of the lights in the sky that came to be known as the Foo Fighters. An unexplained chapter written at 30,000 feet in the crucible of the night skies over a world in turmoil. November 1944, Lieutenant Fred Ringwald, an aviator with the 415th Night Fighter Squadron, was on a patrol over the Rhine Valley. He and his radar operator, Lieutenant Donald J. Myers, were scanning the darkness for any signs of adversary aircraft. Suddenly, their radar picked up something, a bogey, but this was no ordinary contact. It was fast and erratic. Then, they saw it with their own eyes. 8 to 10 bright orange lights flying in a line off their port wing. Ringwald called into his command reporting the unknown objects. The ground-based radar, however, saw nothing at all. The lights maintained their distance, seemingly observing the American aircraft with an impossible intelligence and precision. When Ringwald banked his plane towards them, the lights broke formation and simply vanished into the night. Shaken but unharmed, the crew returned to base with a story that seemed unbelievable, even to them. They filed a report detailing the encounter with the strange, fiery balls that paced their plane. This was just the beginning. Soon, reports like this would become a regular, baffling occurrence for aircrews across the theater. The objects varied in description, but shared unsettling characteristics. They were most often seen as glowing orbs. Pilots reported them as fiery red, bright white, or orange, sometimes appearing alone, other times in groups. They were completely silent. No engine noise, no roar of a jet, just an eerie, luminous presence in the dark. Their flight capabilities were what truly baffled the aviators, who were masters of aerial dynamics and performance. These lights could hover motionless, then accelerate to incredible speeds in an instant, far beyond any known technology. They could perform right-angle turns and instantaneous reversals that would be impossible for a physical craft with a human pilot. Sometimes they would play with the aircraft, dancing around the wings or flying in tight formation before breaking away. Despite their intimidating proximity and speed, the objects never displayed overt hostile actions. They seemed merely to observe. This passive, inquisitive behavior was perhaps the most unnerving aspect of the entire phenomenon for the aircrews. They were ghosts in the machine of the sky, present but intangible, and utterly, completely inexplicable. Initially, pilots who reported these sightings were met with skepticism. Were they seeing reflections or suffering from fatigue? The stress of their duties was immense, and it was easy to dismiss strange lights as tricks of a tired mind. But as the reports mounted from different squadrons and different locations, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Highly respected squadron leaders and decorated aces were now among those describing the same bizarre encounters. Hushed conversations took place in mess halls and ready rooms, away from the ears of skeptical intelligence officers. Pilots compared notes, sketches, and times, realizing they were not alone in what they had witnessed. The psychological impact was significant. It was one thing to face a known adversary, another to face the complete unknown. This new phenomenon added a layer of surreal, high strangeness to an already high-stakes environment. Fear of ridicule often kept men silent, but the need for answers compelled many to speak up and file official reports. The mystery of the Foo Fighters was no longer a fringe story. It was a genuine concern for Allied Air Command. Faced with a growing number of credible reports, intelligence agencies scrambled to find a rational explanation. The most immediate and logical assumption was that these were a new, secret German technological development. Could the Germans have developed some form of remotely guided drone or a new type of flare? This theory was plausible. The Germans were known for their advanced rocketry and experimental aircraft programs. Perhaps these Foo Fighters were psychological instruments designed to distract and confuse Allied pilots during their missions. However, this explanation had a significant flaw that quickly became apparent to intelligence analysts. German and Italian pilots were reporting the exact same phenomena with the same sense of bewilderment. If it was a German secret device, why would it be used to baffle their own air crews? The objects also appeared over the Pacific theater, far from the European sphere of operations. The secret German technology theory, while initially promising, simply didn't fit all the facts of the growing mystery. With the secret device theory losing ground, scientists and meteorologists were consulted for other possible explanations. One prominent idea was the weather phenomenon known as St. Elmo's fire, a type of plasma discharge. This electrostatic glow is known to appear on pointed objects during thunderstorms and was familiar to many pilots. However, the Foo Fighters were different. They were often described as solid, distinct orbs, not a static discharge. Crucially, St. Elmo's fire clings to an object. These lights flew independently, often at a considerable distance. Another theory proposed was the misidentification of astronomical bodies, like the planet Venus or bright stars. Pilots, however, were expert navigators, intimately familiar with the night sky. Such a basic error was highly unlikely. Furthermore, stars and planets do not maneuver, pace aircraft, or show up on radar, as the Foo Fighters occasionally did. Each conventional explanation that was put forward seemed to crumble under the weight of the eyewitness testimony. The phenomenon remained stubbornly outside the bounds of known science and technology of the day. As sightings became more common, the airmen needed a name for what they were seeing. Something less formal than unidentified aerial phenomenon. The term Foo Fighter is credited to Donald Myers, the radar operator from that first major sighting in November 1944. Myers was an avid reader of a popular comic strip of the era called Smokey Stover, created by Bill Holman. The comic's protagonist, a zany fireman, often referred to fire as Foo and called himself a Foo Fighter. One of the comic's running gags was the phrase, "Where there's Foo, there's fire," a nonsensical but catchy line. During a debriefing, frustrated and unable to explain the fiery balls they'd seen, Myers reportedly borrowed the term. He exclaimed they had been pursued by another one of those Foo Fighters, and the name stuck instantly. It was quirky, memorable, and perfectly captured the bizarre, almost nonsensical nature of the encounters. Soon, the term spread throughout the U.S. Army Air Forces, becoming the official, unofficial nickname for these mysterious lights. A name born from a comic strip was now being used in top-secret intelligence briefings around the world. While the name was coined in Europe, the phenomenon itself was global. Sightings were also frequent in the Pacific theater. Crews of B-29s flying long and arduous missions over Japan reported similar encounters with strange, glowing orbs. These lights would appear suddenly, pace the giant bombers for miles, and then vanish without a trace. Just like in Europe, they were silent, maneuverable, and appeared to be under some form of intelligent control. The reports from the Pacific added a crucial piece to the puzzle, ruling out a localized European explanation. Some pilots in the Pacific initially suspected a new type of Japanese device, but this theory faded quickly. Post-conflict interviews with Japanese pilots revealed that they too had seen the mysterious lights and had no explanation for them. They called them servant planes and were just as baffled by their appearance and behavior as their American counterparts. The global nature of the phenomenon deepened the mystery. This wasn't one nation's secret. It was something else entirely. From the frozen skies of Germany to the warm waters of the Marianas, the Foo Fighters were a shared, unexplained experience. Consider the testimony of a P-51 pilot flying a high-altitude escort mission over Germany in early 1945. He reported being approached by a single, brilliant red sphere that matched his speed of over 400 miles per hour. He described it as being about the size of a basketball, with a fiery, almost molten appearance. The pilot, a seasoned veteran, tried to maneuver away, but the orb mirrored his every move flawlessly. He radioed his wingman, who confirmed seeing the same object, proving it wasn't a hallucination. For several minutes, the strange object simply stayed there, an unwelcome and silent escort in the cold, thin air. The pilot later reported a feeling not of aggression from the object, but of intense scrutiny, as if being watched. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the orb shot vertically upwards at a speed he could barely comprehend. It went from pacing him at 400 miles per hour to being out of sight in less than 2 seconds. Accounts like these, filled with precise detail, made the Foo Fighter phenomenon impossible for officials to dismiss. By 1945, the Allied High Command could no longer ignore the deluge of reports from their best airmen. The sightings were logged, cataloged, and cross-referenced by intelligence officers in both Europe and the United States. A special project was commissioned to investigate the matter, bringing in scientists, engineers, and psychologists. They reviewed every report, analyzed gun camera footage where it existed, and interviewed dozens of witnesses. Despite their efforts, the investigation hit a wall. There was no physical evidence to analyze. The objects never left debris, were rarely captured clearly on film, and never engaged in a way that could be studied. The final report from this official investigation was inconclusive, a rare admission of bafflement from the military. It listed the various theories, enemy tech, weather phenomena, hallucinations, and found fault with every single one. The mystery of the Foo Fighters was officially documented, but it remained as deep and impenetrable as ever. The war ended, but the questions surrounding these strange visitors to the sky lingered on for decades. The sheer volume of sightings is staggering. We are not talking about one or two isolated incidents. From late 1944 through 1945, hundreds of reports were filed by Allied aircrews alone. A bomber pilot over Italy sees a red ball of fire that follows him through complex maneuvers. A night fighter crew over Belgium reports a cluster of amber lights that seem to toy with their aircraft. A reconnaissance pilot over the Pacific photographs a strange, dark object that keeps pace with his plane. The consistency in the descriptions, from men who had never met, is perhaps the most compelling evidence. They all spoke of silent, glowing orbs with impossible flight characteristics. The details matched time and time again. These weren't just pilots, they were trained observers whose lives depended on accurately identifying objects in the sky. To suggest they were all mistaken, all hallucinating, or all misidentifying the same thing is statistically improbable. The Foo Fighter phenomenon stands as a case of mass witness testimony that has never been successfully debunked. With all conventional explanations failing, it was inevitable that more exotic theories would begin to surface. Could these silent, intelligently controlled orbs have been visitors from somewhere else entirely? The idea of extraterrestrial observers, while fantastic, seemed to fit the bizarre capabilities of the Foo Fighters. Their silent propulsion, incredible acceleration, and non-aggressive observational behavior aligned with this hypothesis. Perhaps the global conflict had drawn the attention of a non-human intelligence, curious about our species' behavior. This is, of course, pure speculation. There is no evidence to support such a conclusion beyond the process of elimination. But for many who have studied the phenomenon, it remains a tantalizing possibility, however remote. The Foo Fighters are often cited as the beginning of the modern UFO era, predating the more famous 1947 sightings. They represent a critical moment when unexplained aerial phenomena entered the military and public consciousness. Whatever their origin, they forced seasoned pilots and sober analysts to confront the limits of their understanding. Today, more than 3/4 of a century later, the story of the Foo Fighters endures. It has become a classic tale of high strangeness, a staple in the annals of unexplained phenomena. The name itself was famously adopted by musician Dave Grohl for his rock band, introducing the term to a new generation. Grohl, a history enthusiast, chose the name after reading a book about these very sightings during the war. But beyond pop culture, the original story remains a serious subject of study for historians and researchers. It serves as a powerful reminder that even in a conflict defined by technology, there were things that defied it. The pilots who saw them are mostly gone now, their first-hand accounts fading into the pages of history. But their reports remain, preserved in national archives, a testament to what they witnessed in the dark. The Foo Fighters are not just a ghost story, they are a documented historical event, albeit one without a conclusion. A genuine mystery from a time of global upheaval, hiding in plain sight in the skies above the fray. So we are left with the fundamental questions that have echoed since 1944. What were the Foo Fighters? Were they a natural phenomenon so rare that it has yet to be fully understood or replicated by science? Were they a form of mass psychological projection, born from the immense stress and fatigue of the aircrews? This seems unlikely, given the consistency of reports and the fact that they sometimes appeared on radar. Were they a top-secret human technology so advanced that its existence has remained classified to this day? If so, whose technology was it, and why was it never deployed in a more decisive manner? And what was their purpose? If they were observers, what were they observing? And why then? Their behavior was inquisitive, not aggressive. They shadowed, they paced, they watched, and then they left. This lack of hostile intent is one of the most puzzling aspects of the entire phenomenon. The mystery endures because every logical path leads to a dead end, leaving only the extraordinary. To understand how seriously this was taken, we can look at the declassified documents themselves. A 1952 CIA memorandum, years after the sightings, references the Foo Fighters of World War II directly. It acknowledges the phenomenon as part of a larger pattern of unidentified flying objects reported globally. This shows that the mystery wasn't forgotten after the war. It became foundational data for future investigations. In a 1945 issue of American Legion magazine, a journalist directly quoted a military intelligence officer. The officer, speaking on condition of anonymity, confirmed the existence of the strange lights. He stated, "The so-called Foo Fighters have been a persistent headache to us for some time now." This public admission, even anonymously, was a significant acknowledgement of the reality of the phenomenon. It proves that behind the scenes, the military was not dismissing the reports as fantasy or fatigue. They were actively investigating, deeply concerned, and utterly baffled by what their pilots were encountering. Let's not forget the other key witnesses in these encounters, the radar operators, both in the air and on the ground. Their role was to translate the unseen world into actionable intelligence, a job that required immense skill and trust in their equipment. In many Foo Fighter cases, the radar screens remained frustratingly blank. The pilots could see them, but the radar could not. This suggested the objects were perhaps not solid or were made of a material that did not reflect radar waves. However, in other cases, like the initial Ringwald sighting, the objects did appear on radar, sometimes with startling clarity. This inconsistency was maddening for investigators. Were there different types of objects, or was the technology of the day simply unreliable? Ground-based radar operators also occasionally reported fast-moving, unexplained targets at the same time pilots were reporting visuals. These moments of triple confirmation, pilot's eyes, airborne radar, and ground radar, were rare but powerful evidence. It proved that something physical and real was in the sky, even if its nature and properties were wildly inconsistent. The radar evidence, with all its contradictions, only served to deepen the enigma of the Foo Fighters. Ultimately, the story of the Foo Fighters is a human story. It's about the men who flew into the unknown. They were already dealing with incredible dangers and the immense strain of their missions in a global conflict. Then, into this world of calculated risks and known adversaries, came something entirely outside their comprehension. Imagine the courage it took to not only face this phenomenon, but to report it, risking ridicule and career damage. These were not fantasists or storytellers. They were pragmatic, professional airmen dedicated to their duty. Their sober, consistent testimony is the bedrock upon which this entire mystery is built. It cannot be easily dismissed. They saw something strange in the sky, something that didn't belong, and they had the integrity to say so. Their confusion and awe echo down through the decades, a genuine report from the edge of the known world. The Foo Fighter story is their story, a strange and unexplained chapter in their incredible service. A testament to the fact that even in our most documented histories, there are pockets of profound and enduring mystery. Let's recap the core of the mystery. Point 1. Hundreds of credible witnesses, the best trained observers of their time. Point 2. The sightings were global, reported by Allied and Axis pilots in both European and Pacific theaters. Point 3. Consistent descriptions of silent, glowing orbs capable of impossible speed and maneuverability. Point 4. The behavior was observational and inquisitive, not hostile, a fact that baffled pilots and analysts. Point 5. Occasional, though inconsistent, confirmation by both airborne and ground-based radar systems. Point 6. All conventional explanations, from secret tech to natural phenomena, were investigated and found wanting. Point 7. The phenomenon was taken seriously at the highest levels, leading to official, classified investigations. Point 8. The official conclusion of these investigations was that the phenomenon could not be explained. These points form a chain of evidence that is difficult to break, anchoring the mystery in historical fact. It's a puzzle with too many pieces that don't fit into our neat picture of the past. History feels solid, a collection of known facts, dates, and events, but it is not. It is filled with shadows, with whispers, with moments that defy easy categorization. The Foo Fighters are one such moment. They remind us that the world is, and always has been, a stranger place than we imagine. Even when humanity was engaged in its most earthly and terrible conflicts, the sky held its own secrets. Secrets that were silent, luminous, and utterly indifferent to the human dramas unfolding far below. The mystery is not that we haven't found the answer. The mystery is that the question exists at all. It speaks to the possibility that we are not alone, not in the universe, but in our own history. That there are, and have been, other actors on the world stage that we cannot name or understand? The Foo Fighters are a footnote in the history books, but they are a profound one. A glowing, silent question mark hanging forever in the dark skies of the Second World War. What do you think these pilots saw? Was it a secret technology, a natural phenomenon, or something else? The official files are declassified now, available for anyone with the curiosity to look for them. The testimonies of the pilots are there, waiting to be read, their words as powerful today as they were then. This isn't just a story, it's a piece of history that invites you to become the investigator. Let us know your theories and thoughts in the comments below. The conversation is far from over. If you found this dive into history's unexplained mysteries engaging, consider subscribing for more. We explore the strange footnotes and forgotten chapters that make our past so endlessly fascinating. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the skies of the past and for keeping the spirit of inquiry alive. Remember to look up. You never know what secrets the sky might be holding. Until next time, stay curious and never stop questioning the official story.